Welcome to Today's Homeowner with Danny Lipford. Expert advice on improving your home from the pages of Today's Homeowner magazine and remodeling contractor Danny Lipford.
Well, I'm glad you're with us this week. You know, homeowners and viewers alike are always asking me ways to expand their existing living area. Well, this week, we'll show you how we're expanding living area in this house by adding approximately 12 feet to this front section of the home. Also, we've removed a number of interior walls in the house to create a very nice great room. And by removing these walls, we had to span this area by using engineered wood beams. This allowed us to create a real nice specialty ceiling called a pocket ceiling or recessed ceiling. We'll show you how we were able to accomplish that and ways that you can incorporate specialty ceilings in your home. Also, a little bit later, I'll show you how we can install 3/4-inch oak hardwood on an existing concrete slab with a very unique installation process. Stay with us. Well, as you can see, quite a bit of work is being done here on the floor of the expanded great room. We'll get back to that a little bit later in the show. But to give you an idea how we've gotten to this point, you can see where the new concrete meets the old here at this point, which is the location of the original outside front wall of the house. Now, by removing that, of course, we had to handle a lot of weight since this was very much a primary wall or very much a load-bearing wall. So in order to span that, we use what we call a pre-engineered beam, or in this case, an LVL beam, which is a laminated veneer lumber component. And the way it was put in, of course, took a lot of people to raise some of these large beams that were 18 inches high, 3.5 inches wide, and over 28 foot long. And it spanned from one wall over to the other. After they were installed, several 2x6 ceiling joists were put in to keep it good and straight and good and upright. After that was completed, they came back in and put the secondary beams in order to form this recessed or pocket ceiling. Now, the LVL beams and most pre-engineered beams are very good for use in remodeling projects. You'll see what I mean.
Short McMillan has 3 different types of beams. They have the microlam, the paralam, and the timber strand. This one's used with veneers. They lay them up parallel to each other. This one, they use the long strands of lumber, and then this, they use the strands also for the timber strand product. Microlam and paralam are used mostly for beams and headers for heavier construction. These are used in light-duty construction areas around patio doors as such. Paralam and microlam are similar in the fact that you use them for the longer lengths. They're both manufactured lengths up to 60 foot, so that for the homeowner and the builder, they give them the design flexibility that they can go with long spans in their house.
You know, the pre-engineered beams are perfect for me as a remodeler to create a room like this with the wider spans. Also for garages and carports, it's perfect because you have a lot of need to span large areas there as well. Now, specialty ceilings like the recessed ceiling we have here really can add a lot to the room, increasing the volume and the cubic feet, really adds a lot of spaciousness to the overall room. But selection of the right type of ceiling for the type of room you're trying to create is important as well. This one's perfect for this room because it's a very traditional style home, and with the nice 90-degree angles, parallel lines, even margins around the room is perfect for what we were looking for here. There's a lot of other ones out there that you can incorporate in your remodeling project or your new house, such as a cathedral ceiling that starts out at the lower part of the wall and then vaults up to a point usually terminated by a wood beam at the top of the ceiling, perfect to install a ceiling fan or any type of track lighting. Another type of ceiling that's real popular in some of the newer homes is a turtleback ceiling. Again, it starts out very much like a cathedral ceiling and ends up with a nice flat spot on the top of that particular ceiling. Another one, an octagon recessed ceiling, can be used where basically is the same as this type of recessed or pocket ceiling. It just has the 8-sided octagon shape to it. I've also seen these doubled up, almost looking like a wedding cake, and having one octagon stacked on top of the other. Can be a little more ornate in doing it in this fashion. One other one that you could possibly choose is a gazebo ceiling. A little harder to construct, but many times we'll use wood on the inside of the ceiling, really giving it a custom look. Of course, on any ceiling that you may think about incorporating in a project like this, especially if it's a remodeling project, you have to think about a lot of the mechanical things that may be in the way, such as your air conditioning and heating ductwork, gas lines, electric lines. Many of these things have to be considered, because if much of this has to be altered, it may not be feasible cost-wise to implement this. But to implement a ceiling like this in a room of this size usually runs around $2,500 to $3,500, depending on what you have to do in the attic. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Get ready to review your fix-it list as Danny and today's Homeowner Magazine repair and maintenance editor Joe Truini show you this week's simple solution. Brought to you by Dodge.
Now, installing a door at your house is fairly easy, but to recess hinges like this is a little more of a challenge.
That's right, Danny. Most mortises are routed out, but here's an alternative method. Screw the hinge directly to the edge of the door and then mark its outline with a utility knife. Remove the hinge and use a chisel to chop out around the outline. Just remember to keep the bevel end of the chisel facing toward the waist area so you wind up with a nice crisp line. And then hold the chisel perfectly vertical and make a series of cuts about 1/8 inch apart all the way across the waist area. Then hold the chisel flat with the bevel facing up and scrape out all the waste wood. To finish up, hold the chisel bevel down and smooth out the bottom of the mortise.
Now, this is an exterior door, so we'll be using 3 hinges on this installation. But if you have an interior door that you're installing, 2 hinges is usually sufficient. Now, before the drywall was installed on the interior of this project, quite a bit of carpentry work had to be completed. Now, not only the new walls and the new ceiling area, but on this wall we had a fireplace and an interior brick wall that had to be covered over. In order for us to install the drywall over the bricks, we had to use a series of furring strips every 16 inches that were nailed and glued to this wall. Then we were able to pull a string down the wall and straighten it real well, and then start the process of installing the drywall. Now, of course, prior to that, all the electrical, the plumbing, the air conditioning was completed, and all of that work was inspected by the local city inspection department. Once that was cleared, insulation went up all the way around the room, including in this interior wall to provide a sound barrier between this room and the adjacent room. Always a good idea anytime you have a utility room, kitchen area, or in this case, a room that's going to eventually have a real nice sound system, television, be able to really quieten it down quite a bit. Now, the process of installing the drywall can be pretty tough because each sheet weighs almost 100 pounds. They start out by installing it on the ceiling and using nails and screws as fasteners, and they take special care in trimming out around the heating and cooling vents, as well as the many recessed lights we have all around this particular room. After that's completed and they've fastened it real well to all of the ceiling framing, then they start on the walls. They hang the walls horizontally, as you see here, using the same fasteners and taking the same amount of care in trimming around all of the outlet boxes. The reason it's so important to have good cuts around any of the openings like this is it really puts a lot more work on the finisher when he has to come in and tighten up around those holes during the finishing process. Of course, once it's all installed and a few extra screws are installed to really secure it to the stud walls, then they're ready to start all of the finishing process with putting on the tape on the seams, putting the first coat of joint compound, and they come back after sufficient drying time and put the second coat on, which is what they completed yesterday. So now it's all dry and ready for them to come in and put the last coat. Now, each coat they put on the seams, they widen it just a little bit more. So this next coat that'll go on will go on out several inches to create the good smooth wall that the homeowners wanted. Now, of course, this is probably one of the most common ways to achieve that good, smooth wall and ceiling surface, but there's a number of other systems that are available that can achieve those same results.
Gypsum wallboard and plaster are typically the interior types of finishes that you would find in a residence today. What USG is introducing in the USG Decorative Interior Finish System is really a method of decorating that particular surface, carrying it one step further. It provides a unique application, providing both color, texture, warmth, and depth of the final finished application. Plus, on top of it, it's going to be washable, it's UV protected, and in fact, it's more scratch resistant than you would typically find in a typical paint and wall covering application. The system applied over drywall primarily, would start with the application of our sheetrock wall covering primer over just the joint areas. Once the joint areas have been dried at that particular point, about an hour, the USG Plaster Bonder Clear is applied over the entire surface. It provides for the bonding of the system and at the same time the workability of the finish. The finish, by the way, is diamond interior finish mixed with colorant on the job. The colored finish itself would be integrally colored at that particular point and applied pretty much the same way as you would apply kind of tile adhesive. Once applied to about 1/8 of an inch thickness, the material is then troweled several additional times as the material hardens, leaving a final finished surface that's either semi-smooth or textured. Once the application is dried, usually the following day, light amount of sanding can be done to remove some blemishes, if in fact they exist. And at that particular point, the USG Decorative Interior Finish Sealer would be applied in the spray application, providing a total finished system that, again, is washable since it is a 100% acrylic finished application.
Now, many homeowners ask me about taking care of the drywall work themselves, and of course the installation of the drywall is fairly easy, even though it's a little labor intensive. But when you get to the finishing stage, it's really better left to a good skilled professional, because to get the results you need, not only you need the proper tools, but that high degree of skill to really smooth everything out well. Also, homeowners tend to put too much joint compound on the joints, which results in a lot of sanding, which means a lot of dust out on the project. Now stay with us. Next is our best new product of the week.
It's time to check out this week's best new product with Danny and today's Homeowner Magazine Editor-in-Chief, Paul Spring.
Now, Paul, you'll have to tell me about the Craftsman Ready drill. This has to be the oddest looking drill I've ever seen.
Well, they did want it to be noticed, Danny. This solves a problem we've all had, which is you get ready to do a job and you end up with a drill index in one pocket of your nail bags and screwdriver bits in another. This puts twist drill bits and screwdriver bits right in the drill itself.
Well, the obvious question is, how do you get them out of the drill and up here in the chuck?
Well, they did figure that one out. Here's how they do it. First of all, there's a selector switch that's right here, and you can view what drill bits you want to choose just by looking in this slot and the viewing window. You can see them appear in front of you, and then when you get the one you want, you go to the back of the drill and slide this switch forward, and out comes that drill bit, and then we're just going to tighten up on it, and you're ready to go.
Now, what about regular drill bits, other drill bits of different size? Are you able to insert them from the front like a traditional drill?
You are. This is a regular 3/8 inch drill driver. It also comes with 2 twist drill bits and 3 screwdriver bits, or you can put your own in there as well.
Okay, some of the other features, I see a torque adjustment there.
Exactly. It has full torque adjustment for driving screws. It has a 2-speed variable speed motor. It's reversing in a 12-volt size. Even comes with an extra battery and a 1-hour charger.
Okay, it makes a little more sense to me now. Seems to be working out great. One of the things we were able to save early in this project is some great oak flooring. It's 3/4 inch thick, basically in real good shape. And the reason we want to save as much of this as possible, we'll be able to blend it in with the new hardwood that'll be installed a little bit later. This will give us a real good blend of the old and the new. Now, 30 years ago, if you wanted hardwood floor in your house with a house like this that's on a slab, the only way you could really have this attached to that slab is to first put in a series of skids. The skids are basically 2x4s, about 12-inch centers. They're glued and nailed down. That'll give you the perfect situation to nail down hardwood like this, and it allows for any expansion and contraction which is bound to happen with any kind of wood product like this. Now, just like we're matching the hardwood floor, we're also having to match the skid system in order to keep the level of the floors consistent. Let me show you how that's going inside. Now, most of the skids that we found in the older part of the house were 2x4s, but occasionally we found a 2x6 like we have here. Now, majority of the ones that we found were very short lengths and very unstable, and we certainly didn't want to nail an expensive oak hardwood floor to something that may move a little in the future. So our solution was to remove most of them and come back with the pressure-treated 2x4s. Now, these are good long lengths that we have, and we installed them to the concrete and attached them to the concrete by using a good construction adhesive to glue the 2x4 down. Then we came back and drove nails down every few feet until the 2x4s were able to really set up real well. Now the way we were able to do this is using a special nail and a special power gun, power nailer. The nail goes in the end just like this. And then for the power load, you're using something that's very similar to a .22 caliber shell. This load goes right into the chamber just like you would a pistol or a rifle, closes down, and then you're able to shoot it right into the slab. Of course, a lot of care has to be given when you're using something like this, and since all of this is nailed, no need to nail any more right now. Now we were fortunate here in that this slab section was very level. We were able to glue these directly to it, but in the larger part of the room, we had a little more challenge in getting everything good and level. Now one of the problems we had here in the center of the great room is that apparently the original outside wall of the house had settled a little bit. When the new concrete was poured flush with it, it created a little bit of a valley right in the center of the room. Now to prevent you from seeing that later when the hardwood was installed, we used a string to determine what level we needed to put the skids down, then using some treated little shims to go under that. We were able to position it right where it needed to be, secure it down. The carpenters will come back later and apply more glue and more shims to really give us a good, stable subfloor to nail the new oak hardwood down. Now another good advantage of having anything up on skids, it allows you to very easily run any of the electrical conduit like we have here to provide a few floor plugs. Now this will be positioned and secured real well once the wood is installed. You know, when you have a large room like this, it's almost a necessity to have at least one floor plug in the room because generally your furniture arrangement may end up floating in the middle of the room. And instead of having those lamp cords running over the nice new hardwood to plug into the wall outlet, you're able to plug it directly under the couches or anything that you may have positioned out in the middle of the room. So this will work out great. And you may also notice a lot of old black tar over in this old part of the room. The reason for that, and basically is nothing more than hot tar like you would use on a flat roof. It's poured in place once the skids were down in order to provide a moisture barrier to keep from any moisture from migrating up and affecting that hardwood. Now when we put the new concrete down, of course we provided a moisture barrier prior to pouring the concrete that really should help prevent any of that moisture from coming up. But for a little extra safety layer, we're installing a plastic roof cement in between all of the skids on the entire floor. This will help a lot in keeping that moisture from coming up, and also if you have a crack, like a expansion crack, that also is something that happens very frequently with any kind of concrete, this will also keep any of that moisture from coming up. Now stay with us. Next, we'll go outside for Around the Yard.
Now, let's go outside for Around the Yard with Danny and lawn and garden expert Jennifer Brennan. Brought to you by Scott's Lawn Products, for a great lawn, guaranteed.
See how this is rooting into the lawn right here? Ground covers are great. When you use them in ornamental beds, they trail and root in and spread and fill out the whole bed. But when they crawl into the lawn, you need to contain them.
And I guess that's what this is all about.
It is. This is a vinyl edging. You can get these in different materials too, also metal. It has a rolled edge, so it gives you a decorative effect. You sink this in 4 inches in the ground in between the ornamental bed and the lawn, and that keeps the ground cover inside and the lawn out. You can also use a nursery container, like a 3-gallon or 5-gallon nursery container, plant the plant into it, and then sink the container in the ground just with the edge exposed, and that keeps the plant from growing out of it and controls it.
I can see where both of these methods would work real well and cut down on the maintenance around the yard. Now you can really see the progress that took place today here on the front. The brick masons almost completed the entire front of the addition. A little bit of work tomorrow, they'll be completely through. Also, the skid system is finished on the inside, so drying overnight, it'll be ready for the floor man tomorrow. Then the cabinet man can come in and install the custom cabinets on either side of the gas fireplace. And we'll look at all of that on next week's show. We'll see you then.